Hello, web design students. Welcome to week 12. Welcome to Bootstrap. So at this point, the heavy lifting for the semester is done. And all we have left to do is just practice. We really are talking about practice. So now that you have some HTML and CSS skills, you can apply these skills to a framework. The framework is Bootstrap. So Bootstrap is a CSS framework, which is pre-written CSS, layout, and components to quickly build websites. A few examples of sites built in Bootstrap include Instacart, Vogue.com, the Laughing Cow Cheese Company. So how does it work? You apply classes. So you've written classes already this semester from Bootstrap's already written CSS classes to make layouts and components for your content. So for example, adding class container gives you responsive fixed width container. And we'll do that in our example. Or if you pick class container dash fluid, you can get a responsive full width container that expands the whole viewport. And the way Bootstrap is written, it's already responsive. So they've already included common breakpoints for mobile first responsive web design. So you don't have to do it. You just have to apply the classes. So let's talk about layout. The Bootstrap grid system is a series of containers, rows, and columns, and you use this to lay out and align your content. So you're familiar with Flexbox now. It's a CSS system that distributes space among items inside a container in a simple, organized manner, which you've already done. As you know, a Flexbox container expands items to fill the available free space or shrinks them to prevent overflow. So here's a quick example, and we'll do this in the code. Here's 3 pieces of content in 3 columns. So using the class column SM, column-SM, 3 times, so 1, 2, 3, we can create 3 evenly spaced columns. The end result is flexible and responsive to changing browser widths. So let's see it in action. So we're going to dip out of the presentation for a second, get into Atom. We're going to go to Bootstrap, getbootstrap.com, and download or get the starter template from them. And then you follow along. So we'll go to Bootstrap. Let's go to the home page, you can see. So getbootstrap.com, and then we can go to Get Started. Now, here I'm just going to copy and paste some code into my Atom program, but you can also download by going to Download. So the download link's over here, and you can download a compiled CSS and JavaScript. So if you want to get into the CSS itself that they've written, you can download it directly. But what we're going to do is just copy some links and use Bootstrap that way. So we'll go back to introduction. So you can copy the CSS link here. So that's all here. And you can copy the JavaScript here. But the nice thing they do is give you a starter template. So they've already written the HTML tag. They've written the head tag here. They've written some of the meta already. They already have the responsive web design meta tag here. They've got the CSS here already. Got the title of the website. We'll change this. And then they got a body and the rest of the JavaScript. So all you need to do really is go over here in the top right corner, click this copy to clipboard button, and I'll do that. And then I'll go to Atom and set up a new index.html file. So if we go to Atom, and then File, New File, I can paste, so paste my code here. So right now, there's no color coding yet, so I'll have to save this to as an HTML file. So go to File, Save. Now I set up a folder for my Bootstrap video code here. So I'll go here, Bootstrap video, and then you can name it whatever you want, your folders, of course, but I'm going to call this index.html. Click save. And now I have a basic Bootstrap page. Now, there's not much to it. I'll show you what it looks like in the browser. So back to the browser. Open file. Pick up this index.html here. And this is all I have. So this hello world here, we'll change this. It says hello world here. This is the title of the page. We can change that in our code. So we go back to Adam. Real quick, let's change this up in here. Title. This is my Bootstrap example site. And then I'm actually going to get rid of this H1 for now. And then I'll save this, go back to my code, 3, 2, 1, refresh, and nothing there anymore. And then my title is now Bootstrap example file. So that's good. Now we can actually get to work doing stuff with Bootstrap. So right now you'll have this page of HTML, which really has nothing in it. So let's go back to the presentation. So we're back in our presentation. So let's do some stuff. So back to this example I had written. We have a div class row, and we've got these 3 columns here. So let's put that into our code. And what we're also going to put into our code, if we back up slightly, oops, went too far. Here we are. So we need to have this container first. So let's go into our code, and we'll do div class container. We'll get our closing div tag. So we'll start with container, and then the next thing we'll do is go back to our presentation. Now, we'll start with row, and then we'll do the 3 columns. So div class row, and we'll have to close this div. And one thing I haven't really done, and I should, is say use comments to show when the end of my divs are, so I don't get confused as to which is which. So end container div. So now I have a container div, and inside that container div is 1 row. And inside that row, I can start to put columns. We'll call this column 1 of 3. We'll do 3 of them. And with a comment. And then I'm going to make 3 of these. So all I'll do is just copy and paste. And just change these so that I know which ones are which. Oops, 3, and this is 3. So what I've ended with is div class container, div class row, and then div class call. So column, call for column, and then 1, 2, and 3. So if I save this and go back to my browser over here, 3, 2, 1, refresh. Now I have stuff. So, hey, all right, column 1, 2, and 3. And if I resize this, then they shrink nicely. So that's good. And then let's go back to our code. Again, we've got a container, which is all of this. And then we've got inside that container 1 row. That's all of this. And then inside that row, we've got 3 columns, 1, 2, and 3. Column, container, row, column, 1, 2, and 3. So let's go back to our presentation here. So we've done this. Actually, I haven't done this small yet. We'll get to that. And one important note about using multiple CSS classes. So you could write div and then class equals stuff and class equals things. But the easier way to do it is just to write them together and make sure you have a space in between. I think I've mentioned this semester, but it's always a good reminder that you can combine multiple CSS classes into one call out here. And you're going to do this a lot in Bootstrap. So just to skip ahead a little bit, let me go back to our code. And just so you can see this a little better, I'm going to put a border around each of them. So what I've done is gone to the call in the class part, made myself a space, and then wrote the word border. So I type border in there. Same thing for these. So if I save this, go back to my browser, 3, 2, 1, refresh. Now I've got a slight little border around each of my columns. So you can see it a little better. And then go back to my code. I can also, and we're skipping ahead, I'm skipping the next week, but if you do text center for each of these, text center, I'm going in between border and the double quotes here, space, text dash center. These multiple classes all apply to this div. I save this, back to my browser, 3, 2, 1, refresh. I should have centered text. There you go. So my text is centered here. Squeeze in here, very responsive, it's good. Now, let's go back to our presentation again. One thing I should mention is the number 12 and how important it is to Bootstrap. 12 columns is how Bootstrap grids are divided. So in our example real fast, this container is divided into 12, and then of the 12, this takes up 4 of that 12. This takes up the next 4, and then the next 4. So 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 12. So that's how Bootstrap works. You can divvy up in factors of 12. So here, in this example, here's 6 and 6, or 4, 4, and 4, which is what we did. Or we can mix it up really even more. 3, 6, 3, or 3.5, 5, and 3.5. You can get really wacky. You can mix it up depending on your needs. So let's just dip into the code back here again. So I have call here. I can add a number. So really, I was doing call 4, 4, and 4. Save. Back to here. 3, 2, 1, refresh. It doesn't really change, but I have divided it into 12 using 3 sets of 4. So 4, 4, and 4. Now I can do different things like 3, 6, and 3. And that should make a slightly wider one in the middle. So 3, 2, 1, refresh. And now you see that here is a 3, here's a 6, that's double the size, and here's another 3. So that's nice. We can get really wacky, like I said. So if I go to the code here, maybe I'll do 7, 3, and 2. That adds up to 12. 3, 2, 1, refresh. And now this one's really big. This one is smaller, and this one's even smaller. So you can do very specific counts as long as it adds up to 12 in your code. Now, I also had shown in the example SM, SM, and SN. And what that means is that for the small breakpoint, it will change size accordingly. So back to here, and if I if I change the browser width, then these will respond accordingly. So if I resize my browser, when it gets to the small breakpoint, and I'll show you this in Bootstrap in a second, now it stacks vertically. So that's nice. And I will show this to you in the presentation. So you can really get really wacky in your grids. Your columns can span multiple rows using Bootstrap classes. So the takeaway is use a number if you need to use specific. So like we had here, we had 7, 3, and 2, but you can just use call so that the browser will figure it out for you. So it does the math for you instead of using the numbers. If you want to use the numbers, go right ahead, make sure they add up to 12. I had shown you earlier, column-sm will start stacked in a mobile size and then move up. This asterisk here, you can add a number. So we had just used call sm, or you can add call sm and then numbers. So what happens is, after the sm breakpoint, after it starts small and goes bigger, then it spreads out as you like using the numbers. You can mix and match to get different results. So here is a call 12 and then call medium size breakpoint 8. Here's call 6, column medium 4. And then this one is call 6, call MD4, same thing, these two. And then this one's call 6 and 6. And then the end result is this. So this one takes up the whole size. And then this one is half. This one, all of these are the same size, but it gets wrapped into the next row. And then this one is half. So if you go back and forth, you'll see how you can build different sizes, different widths. You can also vertically align these using align item start, center, and end. So if you have a div that's a certain height, you can move them, stick them to the top, stick them to the middle, or stick them to the bottom using align items. Or you can mix it up. One goes in the top, one goes in the middle, one goes at the end. You can go all sorts of wacky possibilities with justify content, spread them all around. You can nest rows and columns within rows. And you can do all sorts if you explore on your own. So for project 3, you're going to develop content of your own choice. So the subject matter is up to you. So examples are a showcase site for a single school project. You can redesign an existing website. You can make a site for a real or fake business. You can create a completely different version of your portfolio site, or someone else's portfolio site, or something completely different. Feel free to use this example site from this week and next for your final project. And for my example website, I'm going to build a Bootstrap version of my current Mediarite.com website, which needs some rebuilding. I got hacked a little while ago, so I had to redo it. But right now I have it temporarily like this. So here's a big image here, and then here's a big billboard, and then here's some projects, and then here's an about little pane, and then here's some contact info. So using this, I'll maybe put a navigation bar at the top, and then I'll add other little gadgets that Bootstrap has. But basically, I'm going to use this as a template for building a Bootstrap version of this. I've built this in a website builder called Tilda, but you can use Bootstrap to build something very similar to this.